Let the sun shine. 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 Let the sun shine.
Hey, what's happening?
Hey.
Got a little tricked up there.
Right.
But, we're here, and
We are here.
It is Wednesday. It is June 3rd, and it's somewhat of a good day based on the fact that we have the 4 convictions for the officers in Minnesota.
Well, they've been charged.
They've been charged, not convicted.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Right. I forgot. We got a lawyer on the other side of the house here. So, what's happening, good people out there in the universe? What's happening, Cheryl, Leslie, James Peters? I see you guys. We got a good show for you tonight. We got a little entertainment, but also, too, at the same point in time, we have a very serious topic that we go through in corporate America, which is the burden of being while black. And basically, the burden of being while black is attributed to everything: walking in the park, living in your home, riding in your car, walking in your neighborhood, the whole 9 yards. All of that is a problem in today's society. So we have the one and only Nathan Hale Williams. I'm very happy to have on the other side of this on the screen, who is a writer, he is a director, he is a storyteller, he is an author, he is a former entertainment lawyer by trade. He's many things. He's a media mogul. He's your new media mogul that you're looking at about doing it the right way and doing it his way. So there will not be a burden on what's happening with his life, and he's picking and choosing what he wants to do, and that's why I have him here today. So welcome, Charmaine, welcome, Sham, welcome, Scotty, welcome, Carl, welcome, James, everybody to the show. So as I stated, we have Nathan Hale Williams. He's a writer, author, director, and lawyer. He is the CEO of Inhale Entertainment LLC based in LA. He is in a University of Chicago at Irvine, Illinois, graduate for his BS degree, BA. And also he got his law degree from the good old George G.W. University in Washington, D.C. Nathan is a friend of mine. He's a friend to the show. He's done my podcast. We've done business together. He's a multi-hyphenated entertainment professional who is an award-winning filmmaker, best-selling and award-winning author and entertainment attorney. So welcome to the show, Nathan.
Thank you, Charlie Lewis Jr. It is so good to be here. Greetings from, it's hot in Los Angeles today.
It's hot in New York. It's 85 degrees, bro.
Yeah, it was like 90 something, and where I live which is too hot for me. That's too hot for me.
Yeah, no. Well, you moved out there and escaped New York for all of this.
Yep.
So we're gonna bring.
Can we cheers first?
Yes, cheers. Cocktail,
to you, my brother.
There you go, to you. So let's just jump into it because we got a lot to discuss, and there's a lot of things that's happening. So first of all, I want to just talk to you about your film Burden, but before that, let's just talk about your background, how you made your transition from entertainment attorney into film, and then what are you doing in the film space? Because the way you are doing short films and your film right now is so important for what's happening right now in the culture. And that's what I love about it. I think you always hit the mark when it's the right time. Even, I don't know if it's God-given, divine order, but your films always hit at the right moment when things are being told that is a part of pop culture that everybody needs to hear. And then the way you make your films and what you do around your films is very important from a business standpoint. So why don't you bring everybody up to date with who you are, how you got into the business, and what's going on? All right.
Great. So yeah, so I'll bifurcate that and start with, kind of how I got here. And I started doing, performing as a kid, and I was a child actor, and then I went through a crazy growth spurt. I'm pretty tall, but I went through a crazy growth spurt around 12 or 13, and I had previously had been booking gigs and stuff like that, and then I started getting rejected because my height didn't match the way I looked. I looked like a 12-year-old, but I was like, 5'9" or 5'10" or something like that. So my mother was never, was never been a stage mother or anything like that. School was the most important thing. And so she was like, I'm not going to have this destroy your confidence. And so if you ever want to go back to being in entertainment, you can do it when you're an adult, when you're not in your formative years, when everything about you, your pride and all of that is being formed. So, I went to undergrad, and I was good in science and math. And, back in the 90s, if you were a Black boy that was good in science and math, you were going to become a doctor. That was what it was. And so I was a biomedical engineering major when I first went to undergrad. Mm-hmm. And the only problem with me being a doctor is I don't like blood, I don't like sick people, and I don't like hospitals. So I don't know how I was going to be a doctor.
That caught you out of us already.
Yeah. And so I found my way back to theater and communications, and got my degree in communications with a concentration in oral interpretation of literature, which was a part of the theater department. And I came out to Los Angeles in between my junior and senior year of college, and my mom was not for that. She wasn't supportive of that. So she was like, you can take your car and here's $500. You got to figure out the rest. Well, that was the summer that, as they say here, the lesson beginneth. Mm-hmm. And it was at that point I was so broke, Charlie, that I used to buy the big pack of chicken wings, because they was like, at that time, like a 24 pack was like $4, something like that. I would have 2 chicken wings and a pack of ramen noodles for every meal, and then some eggs for breakfast, because I could afford eggs and oatmeal. And I was like, this is for the birds. Like, I like steak. I don't like pork and beans. And so I called my mom and I said, if you come, because my car had gotten stolen, it was a horrific summer. I was like, Deborah Martin Chase. Deborah Martin Chase was running Whitney Houston's production company at the time, and they were getting ready to do Cinderella with Brandy. And if anybody knows me, you know this about me. I am a huge Whitney Houston fan. I'm a fanatic. I'm probably one of her biggest fans. Right. And I read an article about Deborah and her being a producer, and I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to run it. I want to be in control. And Deborah talked about going to Harvard Law School. And so I told my mom, if you pay for my ticket to come home, I'll go to school and work for the rest of the summer. And I'm going to take the LSAT and go to law school. And she was like, do you want to take a prep course? And I was like, nah, if I'm supposed to go, I'm going to do well. Long story short, I went to law school, loved it, but I had every intention when I went to law school, when I went to GW, of being a producer. Okay. And so that was my pathway to being a producer. I can't count, so I couldn't go to business school. Fast forward, I'm practicing law in New York City for a private law firm, and like slowly inching my way into entertainment. And Richard Pelzer, who is my longtime now partner, became my client. He and Tammy Ford at the Tammy Ford Agency. Right. And Richard also was like, well, not only will you, I know you used to act or whatever, and somehow he sent me out on some stuff, and I booked this movie called The Ski Trip. Maurice Jamal was, just coming off of Dave Chappelle's, the Dave Chappelle show, on the directing team there. Right. It was his first film. And as they say, the rest is kind of history. That was my first acting, starring role in a film. But then I made them a deal. I said, if you make me a producer, at the time, an associate producer, I'll do all your legal work for free. Mm-hmm. And then over time, Maurice and I became partners. We did The Ski Trip. Logo came out, and Ski Trip was Logo's first premiere movie in 2005. I think we premiered a week before Noah's Ark did. And Then we went on to do Dirty Laundry and other films, and I produced some television shows, and I started promoting parties and doing that. And then maybe about now it's I don't do, I told you I can't count. So maybe about 6 years ago, I'd been writing a column for Essence magazine called The Girl's Best Friend. Mm-hmm. And my mom called me and she was like, you know, I'm tired of you telling other people's stories. You've been writing since you were 8. Tell your own. Mm-hmm. And I wrote my first novel, Ladies Who Lunch and Love. And then I made my directorial debut. Thank you, Charlie Lewis, for being one of my biggest investors and believers in me. Love for Passion. And shortly after that, I picked up and moved out to LA to change course and really focus on being a writer, director, producer.
Okay. All right. So everybody, we have Nathan Hale Williams, writer, director, producer, storyteller, entertainment lawyer, author, with us today, talking about his journey into making films and telling a story. You did a wonderful film. It was called 90 Days, a short film that got you many awards. Why don't you tell everybody about that film a little bit, and then we'll go into your film that you currently have right now, and then also to what you're working on.
So 90 Days for me, all of my films come from a personal place because my goal in creating anything is to heal, uplift, and empower people that look like me, that, you know, have the same orientation as me, that come from the same background as me. I love my community, and I mean that in the full breadth of all the communities I belong to, and not just any one community, but primarily Black people. I love Black people because that's my primary community. And so a dear friend of mine, Nathan Seven Scott, who we used to throw parties with each other, called Nathan Presents, back in New York. In 2015, unfortunately, he took his own life. He was HIV positive, and there was issues surrounding his positive status. And, you know, if you think about it, even just 5 years ago, HIV was a different beast of a virus then, you know. Mm-hmm. But it just crushed my heart to think that, you know, an illness, something that people get, you know, that we all could get from doing something we all do, could be so stigmatized to lead someone as bright and wonderful as Nathan to take his own life. So I wrote 90 Days after being in LA for a year and it kicking my tail and me questioning leaving all of what I had established and worked for in New York to come here and struggle. I wrote it in about 6 hours on a Sunday after my 40th birthday. And it was my love letter to Nathan and all the Nathans in the world. And it was about love. And I made it, you know, focused on the black heterosexual couple, because also I'm a businessman, because it's show business. And I knew that the film would have a much wider and broader audience if the couple was heterosexual. I also knew that Black women were the highest amongst all women in terms of HIV infection rates, and no one was talking to them. Right. And so we went on this journey that led us to Cannes, winning in Cannes and winning an African Oscar, and just, you know, I think we were at 35 major festivals, and, you know, over half of them we won at, and it just really cemented me as a writer director. But more importantly, it allowed me to be an activist and an advocate with my art. Okay,
cool. And then fast forward, like you said, you won so many awards with 90 Days. You were into a lot. It's a short, by the way. You won so many awards at all of the film festivals across the country. Then that led you to the current film that you have out currently right now, which is called Burden. Which why don't you explain Burden to people, and then we'll show it. Okay.
Great. Yeah. So on the tour for 90 Days, it was April 28th or 18th or something like that, 2018.
Mhm.
And it was similar to this time, but not as big as this time. There were a string of things, you know, Becky's calling, and I say Becky's because that's the way that they referred to him at the time, calling on kids selling water and all that kind of stuff. No offense there, but we're calling them, I think it's acceptable to call them Karens now. And
Amy.
yeah, and or Amy, yeah, that's even more appropriate, Amy.
Yeah.
They had called on these gentlemen who were waiting in a Starbucks in Philadelphia for a meeting. They called the cops on them. And I was in a hotel room and I started to cry and I got angry. It was I think it was shortly after the guy that was killed in his own apartment in Texas by the cop who thought she thought she was going into her own apartment. And the best way I know how to deal with that is to create. And so I conceived the Burden at that time. Nick Few, who had been in 90 Days, I basically wrote it for him. And Burden chronicles the macro and microaggressions we face as Black men just walking through life. And I wanted to put it in a film, and I wanted to keep it because I had no intention of doing another short film. But what I found about short films for social justice films is that in 20 minutes, you can watch a film, and then that leaves so much room and air for the discussion, which is really the meat of it, right? And so I created Burden because sometimes I think we overestimate people's understanding of what we go through. Right. I think that we assume that people know what it's like to walk in our shoes, and they do not. And I wanted to chronicle what it's like to wake up as a Black man, put on your armor for the day, and no matter what your socioeconomic, educational, family status is, you're going to confront racism in your day.
Right.
And it shows up in microaggressions, and it shows up in macroaggressions, and then it shows up in things as big as being killed by police officers. So I think you have the trailer.
Yeah, let's just show that.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary, baby.
You're living in poverty.
But don't be late.
Promise.
Your schools are no good. You have no jobs.
Take the ticket. If you want to dispute it, I'll see you in court.
Oh, I get it. Wakanda forever.
Looking for some diamond earrings for an anniversary gift?
I hated to even ask. You know how it is. Always harder on us.
I know.
Ooh, don't go all South Central on me. I moved your stuff over there.
I could be Superman, but
I appreciate you, but I don't need a mentor.
I could be Superman, but I don't know how. I could be
Wow. So, I mean, when I look at that and when I think about that, I think about you in the trailer itself. There were the incident with, the jewelry store going in, being asked a question, the cop, giving the white guy the ticket and him not receiving that. Where did all these stories come from? Were these based on your experiences or experiences that people talk to you about?
Everything in this film happened to me, except for there's a scene in a yoga studio. I really should do more yoga. I don't. But that happened to my dear friend, one of my best friends, Malcolm Venable. And so each of these scenarios could be me, it could be you, Charlie, it could be one of our executive producers, James Cole Jr., was talking about the film in Cannes, and the woman he was talking to asked him, was it biographical? And he said, I think it's biographical for most Black men, if not all. And that has been the response. We premiered last June at the American Black Film Festival. And when Black men and Black women see the film, they immediately connect and relate to the stories. But these are all my fictionalized versions of things that happened to me, all of it. Every aspect of it. Obviously, I didn't have the conversation. There's a conversation he has with God, who is played by the divine energy, played by Miss Pauletta Washington. But that's my imagination of what God and I would have a conversation about this burden.
And what did that really? Why did you add that element of it into the movie? Was it just a relief for you to know that you could lean on the man upstairs, for you to get over this hump and to deal with this trauma and the traumatic experiences that Black men have on a daily? Why did you add that element into the short?
Well, I'll tell you the logistical reason why, and then I'll tell you the storytelling reason why. The logistical reason was, in the original script, Yahweh, the divine energy, was not in the script. Then Miss Pauletta mentioned to Nick that, she'd be willing and open and excited to work with us again. So when Miss Pauletta Washington says she wants to work with you, you figure it out. Right. And but it pushed me to have some inspiration about who she could be in the script. And I thought about it, and I was like, Black women have represented the divine energy in my life, my entire life. And, I view Black women as goddesses. And so, I made God a Black woman. And so this is my version of what that conversation would be. From a storytelling perspective, I wanted resolution. I wanted some hope. I always want my films to end with some hope. I don't want to spoon feed the audiences, because I know that my audiences are intelligent, but I also want to leave them with questions and hope. And there's a question in that her character asks Bennett, and she says, this burden that you speak of, is it a state of mind or a state of being? And I want us to think about that. I know what my hypothesis is. I'm firmly of the belief that you have the power. Right. You have control and dominion over yourself, right? And so somebody can only take power from you if you give it away. Now, I'm not talking about being killed or murdered or anything like that. I'm talking about your mindset and how you walk through this world. And I always have this thing about, and I think you alluded to this, is that I don't wait for people to give me permission to create anything. I greenlight myself. And because as a Black gay man working in Hollywood and working in this structure of entertainment, I'd be waiting all day to waiting for somebody to give me a chance or a shot. I had to create my own. It's it's a different road than some of my colleagues and counterparts, but it is the road that I've chosen to take.
But you know what? The road you chose to take is a very smart role, because the way you use film and the way you going back, I want to go back to, for people who just joined the show, we have Nathan Hale Williams, who wrote a film called Burden. And it's really about the plight of the Black man every day, from a micro and a micro and a macro perspective on what we go through on being while Black in America. And if you missed the trailer, you can go back and watch the beginning of the show leading up into it. But Nathan loves to tell stories through film, and that's his way of expressing what's happening right now in pop culture, what's happening in the world today, what's happening in the Black culture, in the Black community. And what you do, which is really unique and amazing that a lot of other creatives don't do, you realize that when you said show business, that it is about business. And you know how to pivot and make your storytellers, but you also know how to get your storyteller, I lost Nathan. I will bring Nathan back. I don't know what happened, but technology just zoomed him away. he will come back. So for those who missed the trailer, I'm going to run the trailer again, and then I'm going to bring Nathan back into the story while he comes back. All right? Boom.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
You're living in poverty.
But don't be late.
Promise.
Your schools are no good. You have no jobs.
Take the ticket. If you want to dispute it, I'll see you in court.
Oh, I get it. Wakanda forever.
Looking for some diamond earrings for an anniversary gift?
I hated to even ask. You know how it is. Always harder on us.
I know.
Ooh, don't go all South Central on me. I moved your stuff over there.
I could be Superman, but
I appreciate you, but I don't need a mentor.
I could be Superman, but I don't know how. I could be
Hey, it's just me, but when Nathan comes back, we will get it back in. Basically, I guess we're having some technical problems. I don't know what's going on. First time that ever happened. But just like anything with technology, oh, there's Nathan, and we'll bring him back.
Sorry about that.
Look at that.
I'm not sure what happened.
Hey, it happens. You know,
It's modern technology.
You know it. It's all about this bandwidth. So I played the trailer again, which so the people who just came on, they could take a look at and see. So what I was saying was we were talking about show business and how show business, you understand the business aspect of it. So this film Burden is so poignant right now based on what's happening in corporate America. And corporate America does not have an answer for what's happening in the streets right now and what's going on. I've heard from my corporation, as far as people sitting at the table saying, how do we respond? What do we do? You know, and my thought is to them right now, I can't give you that answer. But what I do know is that when I look at upper management or people who are around the table, they don't look like me. And it's a lot of groupthink. So basically, you're getting the same information from the same people. And so therefore, that's why they don't know how to respond. This film right now, there are a lot of people, especially the African Americans, that are in the D&I space. And for those who out there who don't know what D&I means, D&I is diversity and inclusion. You've been able to use this medium, use this film as a medium into corporations. Tell me, was that your intent when you made the film, or was your intent to tell the story?
So, you know, with any storyteller or for me, the first intention is telling a good story, right? Telling a good story that I think is relevant, that is also honest and authentic to who I am, and that I think will be beneficial and entertaining, you know? But the business side, because this is show business, and the more you know about the business, the more you get to show. You know, I did intend for this film to be used as a tool for corporate diversity and inclusion and organizational and community diversity and inclusion programming. And so it was a duality. So the first goal was to tell a great story. And the second but parallel goal was also to make the film something that's accessible for corporations and organizations to use as a tool. And so around that, you know, we worked really, really hard with a psychologist, D&I experts. We, you know, partnered with some of the world's best and top D&I experts to create, you know, programming and programs around the film. Now, I didn't know that was going to actually work, you know, but that was my intention. And, you know, and we have been just remarkably surprised how effective the film and our programming has been. We've been to major billion-dollar pharmaceutical companies. We've been to top-tier law firms. We've been to commercial real estate firms. We just did a virtual screening for the Coalition of Culturally Competent Providers, which is a group of psychologists and psychiatrists out of Philadelphia. And that blew my mind because I was able to participate more than talk and listen to these psychiatrists and psychologists and social therapists to talk about how impactful and effective the film is in getting across issues of bias, inclusion, and blind spots. Because, nowadays in D&I, first of all, when people hear diversity and inclusion, a lot of people, their ears shut, right? Because, they have this so-called thing called diversity fatigue, right? I don't think that's going to be a term used so much anymore. Right. Because we got a major problem here. Right. But the film points out blind spots that, that we all have, and one of the things that with our program, one of the things we start off with is we all have bias. Right. All of us do. And bias is not only just negative bias, we have positive bias. If Charlie Lewis calls me and asks me to do something, I have a positive bias to Charlie Lewis. Right. If some random person or somebody who, doesn't have the same kind of, effect with me, I might have a negative bias. So we all have biases, right? Or have bias. And anyway, we've just been really fortunate to see that, the programming really does. I think you were at a program we did for Black History Month at Room and Board, and you saw the reception there. And then we were in the middle of it, and then Ms. Rona came, and we had to pivot. But that was great too, because now we've seen that we can do this virtually as well. Right.
One thing about one of the challenges I think that Black men have in corporate America, and it's what I posted today, which is, and I use the example because I was thinking about why we don't have the numbers in corporate America. And I know for myself, my upbringing was one where, to be able to go into corporate America and be your authentic self, that's not heard of, Right. And to know that you're going to be in an environment where you can't be received properly is something that's deflating, And so I used the example of Colin Kaepernick, who stood with his character and conviction of came in peace to do a silent knee, take a knee, but now look at where we are, And all he wanted to do was showcase that the police was killing Black men in the Black community, but the way the majority saw it was that the Black men in the NFL was there to do a job, which was to entertain them. So it was a very plantation slave mentality type of thing. And I feel sorry for the brothers who didn't side with him, because I know now they feel pretty much probably like shit, And
they got egg on their face.
They got egg on their face, yeah, because this is the brother who stood in his conviction and his character and said, look, this is a problem. I'm doing, and it was never about the flag. So let's be clear. It was never about the flag. It was
patriotism.
Say that again?
Or patriotism, because I think it's one of the most patriotic things you can do to fight for equality for all of American citizens.
Right.
You don't get more patriotic than that.
Right, which is to be able to protest, and that's your First Amendment right. So being able to do that is, I think, is a problem. I mean, not a problem, but being able to do that. But for Black men, it is a problem, and it is a burden, for us to be able to know that if I go in and if I go against what the system is, then I'm not going to be able to provide for my family. I'm not going to be able to provide for the loved one. So I have to suck it up. I have to make them feel comfortable, make them like me, for me to be able to stay around and get that check, which is the most, I think, demoralizing thing that you can do as a Black man, as a man of color, to go into an organization day in, day out, and you bring all that home to, you know, your wife, your husband, your partner, whatever the case may be. Your medium of using this film burden, when you have those discussions, do all those topics come up, you know, after the fact, because that's what you said you use it as?
The conversations are as diverse as they are rich. So it depends on the audience, quite frankly. So, you know, we have been, the most interesting, I have to say this, the most interesting audience I've ever presented the film to was an audience of predominantly white shoe firm lawyers, right? And I was very nervous because not nervous in terms of I was afraid or anything like that. I didn't know how it was going to be received. And that film hit them so hard that, you know, my time was up. They were done with their little lunch thing. And they were like, can we stay? Do you mind staying for 15 more minutes? And all that kind of stuff. Because entertainment has a way of building empathy and creating empathy in a non-judgmental, blaming kind of way. And I was very aware of that. You know, like Mary Poppins says, a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. And I was very aware that, I couldn't be so heavy-handed, right? Because if people tune out, then your whole job of making sure the message sinks in is lost. And so the film is very balanced, and it's not accusatory, but it's true and it's authentic, and it doesn't let anybody off the hook, because Bennett, throughout the course of his day, as you can see in the trailer, he encounters it from a Black woman.
Right.
Who happens to be a trans actress, Alexandra Gray. And I bring that up because I don't know if you saw yesterday, the young transgender woman was beat up by a group of young Black boys on tape. And we got to fix that too. You know, we got some work to do in our community too. That's not letting them off, but it's also, we got some work to do too. Because it's really hard for you to ask someone not to be discriminatory or prejudiced or racist when you are teaching that in your household towards another group of people. Nikki Giovanni said, nothing is the same except for oppression and shame. Right.
Yep. Amen to that. And I love that part, because the bottom line is, you did, like I said, 90 days, you told that story of what was going on, which was pivotal. So what's coming up next for you? What are you working on next?
I finished a feature-length documentary on the homeless crisis in Los Angeles called "It Can Be Done: Ending Homelessness in America." It chronicles the efforts. It chronicles the history of Skid Row and the homeless epidemic. If you know this, we are the center of it in Los Angeles. At any given point, you know, we have more than 60,000 people without adequate shelter. Here, and different than like New York, most of those people are living on the street or in their cars. New York has a bunch of shelters, so you don't, believe it or not, you don't really see as much as you see it here. When you come to LA, you see it everywhere.
That West Coast
from Beverly Hills.
Yeah, it's something about that West Coast homeless from San Diego all the way up to Seattle that is just like, it's just everybody. It seems like they let everybody out of the mental home. Everybody who's, you know, homeless, everybody is like fighting for street room. I mean, the homelessness is so severe out there. Why is that? What is going on?
Well, and that's what the documentary is about. The face of homelessness has changed. It used to be, the mentally ill, and the film chronicles how all of this happened. Well, JFK, he institutionalized mental hospitals, right? But his plan was to create these community mental health centers so people who were mentally ill could still stay in their communities and receive care. 6 months after he did that, he was assassinated, and Johnson never picked it back up. And then Reagan in California closed all the mental hospitals, and there was no place for people to go. Then you had Vietnam, and then veterans were coming back with no jobs. And so they introduced heavy drug use to places like Skid Row. But that was the old face of homelessness. The new face of homelessness are people like you and me who, you know, fell badly on luck. Like, think about it. So in Los Angeles, the cost of an average, you know, to rent a 1-bedroom rose 70% in 1 year.
Right.
You have a lot of homeless people right now who have 2 and 3 jobs and are still living on the street because they can't afford to pay the rent. The rent is too high. And you have luxury buildings that are sitting with 15 to 40% empty vacancies, and they're still building luxury buildings instead of affordable housing.
Right.
So I chronicled, you know, the efforts of the Healthy Housing Foundation, who's built this model that is much more efficient, and it takes existing structures like former hotels that have been abandoned and rehabs them for a lot less than what the city is doing and the state government is doing, and moving people into housing. So that's called It Can Be Done, Ending Homelessness in America. I've been done with the film proper since February, and we had to halt post-production because of Corona, and we couldn't, you know, finish it in person. But now we're working to finish it, and so that'll be out, you know, very shortly. Then I'm going to fun. I'm going to fun.
What you say? I'm going to social justice.
I'm going to fun. I am. You know, I have a television show that I wrote and co-created with my dear friend Kevin Clash, who was Elmo for many, many years. And he created this sassy puppet named Anemone. And we've got a new show called Anemone's Got Talent. And it is about a sassy aging puppet who gets another chance at stardom, but she will cuss your ass out. It's a lot of fun, but it still deals with social justice issues, but in a really fun, you know, way. It deals with ageism and colorism and classism within the entertainment industry, and why talent is not enough for people who are marginalized. Then I'm making a drama based on my novel, Ladies Who Lunch and Love, which is about, four friends navigating African-American high society in New York.
Right. Okay.
So it's time to have some fun, Charlie. It's time to have just pure fun.
Yeah, and get paid at the same time.
And make some coins. Yes.
yes. So, if you had to look back and say to yourself, what would you do differently, and what advice would you give yourself doing what you've done? Because I think remarkably, the amount of time that you've been in the business, you have done a wonderful job as being able to be on the big screen and to be out there and put yourself out there and put yourself forward. So if you had something to do differently, what would it be? And what do you like what you are doing and you will continue to do? And if you had that advice for someone who's getting into the industry.
So that's a great question. And I'm glad you asked me that because, you know, on the one hand, obviously, I wouldn't do anything differently because I wouldn't be where I am if I'd done it differently. What I love about this time now that is different than when I was coming up, in hindsight, I knew I wanted to be a writer-director at the age of 10 when I watched The Color Purple.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my favorite film. It's always been my favorite film. It will probably always be my favorite film. And I saw Black people, and I saw them go through something and then triumph over it. And I knew then the only language I had then was to be an actor. Because Spike wasn't around, you know, I didn't know about Oscar Micheaux and Melvin Van Peebles. I didn't know about the Black filmmakers that were making films then, Essex, him, and all those people. I didn't know about them, and it wasn't until Spike Lee came along, and I was too young when he did She's Gotta Have It, so my mom didn't let me see that. But I saw School Days.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, and then this woman that was a counselor, Mevelyn, she was in it, and I was like, we can actually create this, like, but it still wasn't in my language to become a film. That wasn't a part of what I could be. That wasn't a possibility for me.
Because because you weren't exposed to it. And I think we all grew up in a generation where social media now for kids today, they can see themselves doing so much. We were limited based on our parents' exposure and what our parents exposed us to, and then wherever after high school, then whatever we got ourselves involved into. So is that what you're? Okay,
that's exactly what I'm saying. So so that's not something I would do different. I wish it were different, because my counterparts were getting cameras when they were 13, and going to film school was an option and something on their radar. Wasn't even on my radar. Differently, that I actually have control over, I probably would have started writing and directing and learning that craft a lot sooner. Because it is my calling. It's my gift. And I say that with humility and with gratitude that God gave me that gift, but it is my happy space. Now I'm writing, and I start writing at 8 a.m. and I write until about noon and 12:30. And it is the happiest that I am all day, because it's where I'm supposed to be, right? So I definitely would have started creating my own stuff a lot before then. What I'd like that I'm doing now is telling stories that mean something to me, and then also with a look to telling stories that I think are marketable and sellable and that will make money. What we've done with Burden, what we've done with 90 Days is proven that you can make money. Like, I have investors for Burden, and I was literally just on Monday sent them an email being able to say, you're going to get your first disbursement, in September from a short film.
Right.
And that's unheard of. And I don't know I don't know too many more other people that are doing that the way we're doing it.
Okay. Well, you guys have any questions for Nathan? Let me know. But some of the projects that you've worked on and that you've been involved in, I know like you said, do you think not programming, the stories that you're telling from a socio-political aspect way more now just because of the climate that we're in? I was talking to Mara, and she basically said, the thing about film, it just takes a little longer to get to production, so things can kind of move too fast before you can get it out into the people. Whereas with music, you can tell that story. You can go into a studio, write that rhyme, and get it out, and boom, it'd be on the airwaves the next day or the next week. What's your thoughts on that as far as, filmmaking, the whole process, and if you see a story that you want to tell, especially from a social-political vantage point, and you can't get it to film, does that interfere with what your thinking is or what you think you should do? Or, are you inspired by that? Or is it more about just where you currently are right now, what you want to tell, as opposed to what's happening in the existing climate?
Charlie, you mentioned this in the introduction. I have to say, I always jokingly say, but I think we all are, I'm one of God's favorites, because it's nothing but divine intervention. When I thought about doing this film, it was April 2018, right? Mm-hmm. So I had no idea that we'd be in this environment right now. I had no idea that, we'd be going through all of this. I did know, though, that these are issues that don't sunset. Right. The HIV and AIDS in the Black community has not sunset, and it's not sunsetting anytime soon. Racial discrimination and issues of racial equity and equality and bias and discrimination will not sunset anytime soon, even after this grand scale global, cry out. It will not. It's going to take time. Change is a marathon and not a race. So I can't say that I necessarily pick things for their longevity. I do pick things that are important to me at the time and that inspire me, because then it's easier for me to write. But it just so happens that the issues that are important to me are issues that have been plaguing us and that we've been scrapping with for so long. And then God steps in and says, your film came out at the perfect time. You know, like I said, I had no idea that it would work. You know, when you're doing the Dog and Pony Show for people to support you, whether it be investors or organizations, you're selling this, you know, you're selling it. It's going to be great. And it's going to have an impact, and people, excuse me, are going to want this. And you know this, we had a conversation right before in February, you know, because we were thinking about resources and people, you know, you were helping me think about resources and stuff. And then Corona hit, and I kind of was like, well, that just took the sail out of our wind.
Right.
And, you know, and then divine order, here we are.
Right.
I try to create something that means something to me. I create things that mean something to me. And then I try to create them in a way that the business will work no matter where we are in time. Okay. And it just so happens God just keeps stepping in.
Right. Oh, I hear you. And I love the stories that you're telling. I want you to keep on telling the stories that you're telling. I'll be there for you as far as all the things that you're doing. I can't wait for your next film to come out. You got any parting words for the listening audience out there as far as what's going on in the current climate right now?
You know, it's what I always say, you know, persistence is key. You know, don't give up, because you never know when you're right on the edge of that breakthrough, and whether it be a personal breakthrough or whether it be a societal breakthrough. Because imagine if those kids who started the protest, you know, last Monday or Tuesday, had given up because people were telling them they were doing something wrong. Imagine.
Right.
So if you believe something in your heart and you are convicted by it, be persistent, and no matter what it is. And don't let people tell you because you look a certain way, you're a certain age, you talk the wrong way, you come from the wrong family, that there's anything outside of your ability, because they didn't give you the power. They can't take it away.
All right. Well, on that note, we're going to say goodbye. Thank you, Nathan Hale Williams, for coming through. Your film, Bird. We'll have all the information in the write-up in my Facebook page. So you'll have all the trailer information and everything for Nathan's films and how you can contact him if you have any questions about him. But I appreciate you coming on the show, and good luck out there in LA. And I can't wait to see your next film.
I love you so much. Thank you for having me.
All right. You too. Take care, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Let the sun shine. Let the sun shine. Let the sun shine. Let the sun